Africa and around the world. My name is Smart Mado Ajaja. I am the convener of Open Nigeria and Africa Unite and the anchor of Nigeria Now. Global Matters Arising. Good morning, Africa, and reggae at its best on ONN. It is a pleasure once again being here with you to showcase Nigeria and what is taking place in that country right now. Yes, Nigeria is in turmoil and has been in turmoil for a very long time. The situation just got worse, and there is need for action, by its citizens. Yes, from the north, east, west, and south. It is compelling that we do something now, or we'll forget the country. Our country is at war. Let us not pretend about it. Let's not pretend about the fact that Nigeria is at war. The country is indeed at war. And citizens must not fold their arms while this war is being leveled against them, especially against women and children, here and our elderly, who are vulnerable and cannot take decisive actions to save themselves. Our country has been a country that has been struggling. But if you want to understand the history, the story of Nigeria, you don't start from 1960. You must start from 1914 or even before 1914. That led to what they call the amalgamation of the northern and the southern protectorate in 1914. 1914. Yeah. So if you want to clearly, if you're a young person or somebody who has never been interested in understanding the history of Nigeria, you must go that far, as a baseline to drive your understanding, so you know why we are where we are right now. For the benefit of the young people and those who are visitors to Nigeria and those who are encountering us for the first time but have never heard me give a rendition of this history, I am going to, give a brief overview of what it is. Yes, the British have been in what became Nigeria for a very long time. Actually, following when they concluded their Berlin Conference in 1884 and 1885, the European Berlin Conference, yes, under the chairmanship of Chancellor Bismarck of Germany at the time. Yes, this after the conference, they set a sail and then started establishing spheres of interests, yes, of spheres of influence, spheres of influence, yes, spheres of influence that became colonies. Yes, that was how British or Britain grabbed Nigeria. Yes, they grabbed that part of West Africa and it became their colony for administrative and economic convenience, for their own benefit. They decided to amalgamate and south that they call protectorates. Yeah, they call the northern protectorates and the southern protectorates. They waged wars in the north. They supported wars in the north. They aided the Fulanis to defeat the Hausa people. And that's how they came together and established the type of relationship that they have to this date. Yes, the Fulanis and the British have a very special type of relationship. Very, very special type of relationship. Yes. Yes. So that was where the trouble started. So when they fought with the Fulanis and then they resettled, who did they use? They used the Hausa people as their pawns, as their resettlement. When they came together, that they wanted to build that part of the country, you know, what became part of Nigeria. Yeah, it was the Hausas that they made victims. Yes, they made them victims. So if you're an Hausa person listening to me now, you need to listen. I'm sure you know your history. about what the British did, to your ancestors to bring them where they are. Uh, we bring you where you are today in the present day Nigeria. They have and they had and still have this very very close knit relationship with Britain. I'm talking about the Fulanis. Yes, that was how they handed them that part of Nigeria. But we are going to come to the details. All right. In the south of Nigeria, they had a lot of troubles trying to control the Igbos, control the trade there. All right. The Igbos gave them a lot of help. So they were not easy targets for them to colonize. They went elsewhere and forced their ways, and then eventually um, they found a way, the direct and indirect rule. That's what they used, direct rule in the south of Nigeria, and they used indirect rule in the north of Nigeria based on the arrangement that they reached with the Fulani elites at the time. So that was why they left there the way it was. All right. Yes, especially after the 1804 jihad, when the Fulanis had already grabbed the Hausa land. They fought another war with the British. All right, but they ended up with a kind of, they reached a settlement agreement. Leave things the way they are. Rule, rule the Hausa people. Rule the majority through us. Rule the majority through us. All right, that's where this Odyssey of Nigeria started from. So there was indirect rule in the north of Nigeria, and the middlemen were the Fulani elites. So when they came together in 1914 to do their amalgamation treaty, there were already Fulanis, minority Fulanis, in charge of the what they call in the charge of Hausa land that is not theirs. They came there to grab for purely economic reason. They said it was a jihad. The jihad had no God. The jihad had no spirit. The jihad was driven by politics. The jihad was driven by economics. And the jihad was driven by finance. Nothing about God. Nothing about spirituality. But the smokescreen was religion. And that religion was Islam. Islam of economics. Not the Islam of justice. Not the Islam of equity. And not the Islam of fairness. This Islam of subjugation, the Islam of deprivation, the Islam of abuse, the Islam of kidnap, the Islam of rape, and the Islam of denial of access to opportunity for the Hausa people to grow and develop, progress and prosper. Yes, in an environment that was not threatening. So these Hausa people you see today have been through 222 years of abuse, of subjugation, of denial of access to opportunity, of denial of education, of denial of everything. They promoted ignorance among them. They disordered them. They took over their thrones. They seized their land. They took over everything. They forced a program of abusive reproduction in order to neutralize the original population. Yeah, that is when you see when they talk about Hausa Fulani. There's nothing like that. It's either you are Hausa or Fulani. But let's go back to the thing. The main issue, the amalgamation, for you to clearly understand the history. The amalgamation took place. How many persons? How many persons? Nigeria has over nearly 400 ethnic nationalities in Nigeria. Over 400 ethnic nationalities in Nigeria. They handpicked two Fulanis. They handpicked two Yorubas. They picked one Kanuri and they picked one Ibibio. Yes. The two Fulanis that they handpicked. One became the Sultan of Sokoto. If you're a student of history, or student of West African history, or student of African history. I studied West African history. I studied a great part of African history. I was never taught anything about anything like Sokoto Kingdom. It never existed, never. But we studied the Hausa states and the Hausa kingdoms. But there was nothing like the Sokoto Kingdom. They did not have. There was nothing like Sokoto Kingdom. It was a make-up kingdom. There was not an African kingdom, and it remains and will not be an African kingdom. That was what was imposed on our people in the north of Nigeria, chiefly the Hausa people. Yes, they brought that kingdom, put Islam into it, the Islam of abuse, not the real Islam that real people practice. The Islam of mass murder and Islam of exclusion. So that was how they brought two. One of them became the Sultan of them, damn Sokoto, their dying terrorist Sokoto. And the other one became the Emir of Kano. And then there was one, the Kanuri man was um, the what is it called? The something of Borno, yes. And then the one they brought from becomes the Niger Delta right now was the king of the Calabar people. Yes. Yes. Obong of Calabar. Right. So six, six from three, maybe four ethnic groups in Nigeria, a country of nearly 400 ethnic nationalities. Was that fair? There was no Hausa man. There was no Igbo man. There was no Igala man. There was no Idoma man. There was no Berom. There was no Igede. There was no Angas. There was no Jukun. All right. In the south of Nigeria, there was no Ika, there was no Urobo, there was no Edo or Bini. There was nothing. Just six. That was not representative of the people. And for the two that they chose from what we call the Yoruba land, one of them was the first Yoruba lawyer, and the other one was the Alafin then of Oyo Empire. So tell me that these people meant justice. It was not for the good of the people of Nigeria. It was good for economics. It was good for their administrative convenience of the pillaging and stealing of African raw materials from Nigeria. That was what it was about. And they found some earlier partners that they had contact with at the time they arrived the shores of Nigeria. So that was not representative of Nigeria. But anyway, they did their amalgamation. Yes, the one that I was forgetting about was the Shehu of Boronu. Yes, that was the Kanuri man, the Shehu of Boronu in the north. Not what became northeast now, and the hotbed where terrorism is raging by Boko Haram. Yes. So you can see it's a group of some fairly okay elites at the time that they could deal with. They prop them up. It was business, like their business partners. They were not Nigerians. There was no Nigeria at the time. But what became Nigeria, came out of this illicit amalgamation that was to last for 100 years. that excluded the Hausas, the Igbos, and other ethnic nationalities in Nigeria. It was to last for 100 years. And along the line, some children were born. Nandi Azikiwe was born in 1904, I believe. Yeah, before the amalgamation, he didn't know anything. Awolowo was born in 1909. So these young men grew up. Maybe perhaps their parents were a little bit learned. Those who worked for the colonial administration, they had access to education. The United States, Zeke went to the university here in the United States. Awolowo did some of his work, educational work, maybe in the UK and all that. So they became the frontline elites. And those who started advocating or demanding for self rule for the people of what became Nigeria. Yes. So now, with their emergence, the agitation started gaining traction. There was Senator Joseph Tucker coming from the Middle Belt and all that. But I did not hear much about any Fulani, except maybe perhaps the unwilling passenger, Amadu Bello, in the whole thing. Yes, a child of the British Fulani relationship. Yes. And then they started the constitutional conferences between Nigeria and the United Kingdom. Yes, until they got to that stage of independence. I remember a young Anthony Nahoro had moved a motion for the independence of Nigeria in 1957. But those who claim that they are Northerners now, whenever you hear Northerners, there's one thing you should get in your mind. There is nothing like the North like that. Whenever you hear Northerners, you are talking about the Fulanis. Yes. Whenever you hear not, I'm happy that that not is dying now. You hear all you know, what goes, cast your mind straight back, and you see is the Fulanis that talk about this not. And they talk about it so arrogantly to the exclusion of other people that are supposed to be from that region. Whenever they gather, two or three Fulanis will gather, they will say that the North or Northern elders have spoken. Now you begin to look in the pictures that they will present. You don't see other people who are from other tribes in the north. You don't see no single, no atom of an Hausa person, no atom of a thief person, no atom of a Doma person. So how are they the north? But that has been, and to this date, when now people are beginning to ask questions, I'm happy the questions are being asked right now. So independence came on a very terrible foundation on October 1st, 1960. That's when they awarded Nigeria the Greek gift of independence. October 1st, 1960. And then you could tell that the founding fathers, that we refer to as the founding fathers of Nigeria, they didn't know what to do with Nigeria. It was whatever the British told them, especially those from the Fulani angle, with whom they have this very tight relationship. And to support what I am saying, I am going to play a video from the horse's mouth. Aaron Smith, the colonial labor officer, he granted an interview, I think before he died. He was getting old. And when they are about to get old and die, they will start making up, they want to make up with God so that they will get into his kingdom. So he was interviewed, and you need to hear what he had to say. Yes. So at independence, there was no discohesion. There was nothing like there was anything serious about the people building a country, building a nation. The leaders were after controlling their immediate. They already created their own. Awolowo was in the west, trying to hold the Yoruba people under his control. In the north was Amadu Bello, the grandson of Osman Dan Fodio, the man responsible for the violent jihad that destroyed thousands of Hausa lives, that seized the lands of the Hausa people, that dethroned Hausa kings and installed Fulani emirs. Yes, that's the grandson. And an apple does not fall too far from the tree. He carried out mission of his grandfather. He wanted to continue the mission, like most Fulanis with ties to that absurdity wants today. And the reason they are shooting up Nigeria is a generational mission to seize Nigeria and, in fact, the West African sub-region. And they will tell you with arrogance that they own Nigeria. How a minority, not up to 10 million in number, in Nigeria has held the country hostage for this long is something that should inspire a research. Yes. This is the army. This is all of the country's strategic institutions. They are holding the country by its jugular. The country, Nigeria, is choking and about to die. They have been at war with Nigeria. They declared war on Nigeria. But sadly, Nigeria's over 250 million people went to sleep, and even some work with them for the money that they get. So 6 years after, the country went up in flames because of a trouble that started from the southwest of Nigeria, the Yoruba area. About the 1959 general election in Nigeria, in which NCNC, led by Dr. Nandi Azikiwe, won seats because Azikiwe had a national flair. He was the only nationalist among the three. He was the one who wanted to reach out to the people in the north to make them belong to one country. He was the one who reached out to the people in the southwest to tell them the importance of building a nation. But he made some fatal compromises. Anyway, going to the genesis of what happened in the southwest. The NCNC won the elections in that place. The people now that tells you that the Yorubas were not tribal. They wanted a Nigeria that will work. That was why they voted for an ideology, a nationalistic ideology, against the tribal ideology that was espoused by Chief Obafemi Awolowo, a great administrator. But he wasn't a nationalist. He wasn't interested in bringing the people of the country together the way Dr. Nandi Azikiwe was, which had, which resulted into his party winning the election because the NCNC had a national appeal, a national ideology. Let's build a nation. In the north, Amadu Bello was only interested in building a Fulani nation, riding behind Islamic religion. You need to hear what he said at independence. So maybe for the benefit of those who have never heard, let's play what Amadu Bello said at independence. So you can hear firsthand where the trouble of Nigeria started. He was the one who sowed the seed of hate in Nigeria. That Yes, he was one who sowed the seed of hate that has destroyed Nigeria. So
Desire is mainly
listen to
type
him.
of people whose desire is mainly to dominate everybody. If they go to a village, to a town, they want to monopolize everything in that area. If you put them in a labor camp as a laborer, within a year they will try to emerge as headman of that camp, and so on. Well, in the past, our people were not alive to their responsibilities because you can see from our northernization policy that in 1952, when I came here, there weren't 10 northerners in our civil service here. And I tried to have it northernized, and now all important posts are being held by northerners. Is this policy of filling all key posts in the north solely with northerners and not with other Nigerians a temporary or permanent one? In actual fact, what it is a northerner first. If you can't get a northerner, then we take an expatriate, like type of people whose desire is mainly
I'm starting this over again for
type
considering
of people
this one.
whose desire.
Hold on.
One thing type of people whose
Yeah, I want us to get this clear. Yes, I'm going to start this again. This was a statement by Amadu Bello at Independence. He was the premier of northern Nigeria, a new country. On day one, he said these words, when he was being interviewed by a BBC reporter. And let us play it. One thing I've noticed, Premier, while I've been here, is that Northerners seem to have, I mean, almost call it obsession about the Igbos. Could you perhaps explain that to me? Well, the Igbos are more or less the type of people whose desire is mainly to dominate everybody. If they go to a village, to a town, they want to monopolize everything in that area. If you put them in a labor camp as a laborer, within a year they will try to emerge as headman of that camp, and so on. Well, in the past, our people were not alive to their responsibilities because you can see from our northernization policy that in 1952, when I came here, there weren't 10 northerners in our civil service here. And I tried to have it northernized, and now all important posts are being held by northerners. Northerners. Is this policy of filling all key posts in the north solely with northerners and not with other Nigerians a temporary or permanent one? In actual fact, what it is a northerner first. If you can't get a northerner, then we take an expatriate like yourself on contract. If we can't, then we can employ another Nigerian, but on contract too. This is going to be permanent, I should say, as far as I can foresee, because it will be rather dangerous to see the number of boys who are now turning from all our learning institutions coming out with having no work to do. I'm sure whichever government of the day might be, it will feel rather embarrassed, and it might even lead to bloodshed. Doesn't this damage the idea, sir, of all people in all regions in Nigeria being fellow citizens of one country? Well, it might, but well, you are, I mean, new to our region, but how many northerners are employed in the east or in the west? The answer is no. And if there may be 10 laborers employed only in the two regions. Yes, that is the Nigeria that we have. A country whose independence was premised on one Nigeria. One Nigeria. One Nigeria. I have lived in the United States for 30 years. And I've got some of the best jobs here. I wasn't born here. And of all the interviews I've been to, nobody has asked me any questions about my nationality. I was hired because of my abilities. I was hired in areas where I was hired because of my competency, not based on my skin color or anything else. But you heard him, a supposed Nigerian leader, as far back as 1960, making such a hate speech in a country that is supposed to be one. He was so emphatic. Not. Now, if I may ask, who are the Northerners who benefited from being employed into those high offices? If you don't know, they were only Fulanis. You want to be shocked that since independence, there has been this deliberate policy to not educate the Hausa people by the Fulani elites. Why did they do that? In order to keep them under control, in order to keep them subjugated, in order to make them stay like less than humans, in order to make them remain their errand boys and girls, in order to keep them ignorant and illiterate, so they cannot wake up and start asking questions. And this has happened for 12 generations. 12 generations. And they use the Hausa people, their numeric strength of the Hausa people, to win elections through all means. Yes. And after they use them, they dump them. They don't do anything for them. They don't educate them. It might shock you that as we speak, as we stand right, as we are here, you are listening to me. There are over 30 million poor, innocent, and defenseless Hausa children out of school. They have no hope for education in a country as rich as Nigeria. And in a north, in a supposed north, held hostage by the Fulanis, with governors, with senators, with members of House of Representatives, and other elites, both from the public and private sector, doing absolutely nothing. The Hausa people are just good for making tea for them, for shining shoes for them, for being their guards, gate men. Yes, for tilling their soil and living below poverty line. And they expect them not to rise up. They expect them not to ask questions. And they expect nobody else to ask questions on their behalf. And that is why people like me are hated. They call me all sorts of names. But yes, who cares? I am a Nigerian. The Hausa people are my brothers and sisters in Nigeria. They have a right to what those rights that I had to be educated. They have right to health care. They have rights to be whatever any other Nigerian from any region in Nigeria is or can be. But the Fulani elites, who call them brothers and sisters in Islam, are the ones holding them down. They hold them. The most recent thing they are using to hold them down now is the Sharia law. The Sharia law is a standard established mostly by Fulani elites who find themselves in government, fearing that one day the Hausa people will rise up. They came up with this Sharia law. The Sharia law is a weapon of mass destruction against the Hausa people and on other unsuspecting Muslims in Nigeria. And it violates the constitution of Nigeria. And if they use it to violate the rights of poor Hausa children and any person in Nigeria for that matter, it incites activists like me. We will speak about it because Nigeria is a secular state and not an Islamic or an Arabic state. This is why they are angry, and that is why they are shooting up our country violently. Yes, see this young man you see here. This is a 12-year-old boy. What was his offense? You see, his forearms are chopped off. What was his offense? He was hungry. He stole a cell phone, and then he was taken to a Sharia law, a law court. He was not given any other option. They took him straight to Sharia. I don't know if it was a doctor who swore to the Hippocratic oath that took a chainsaw and cut off this boy's arms. Sharia law is an elitist Fulani weapon against the poor in northern Nigeria that the oppressed must rise up to end now. They declared a war against Nigeria, and we must not empower them to finish up the war. Fulani elites have destroyed Nigeria enough because they are mostly corrupt and morally bankrupt, incompetent, inhumane, insensitive, and irresponsive, lawless and indifferent to transparency and accountability. And because they are mostly deceitful and arrogantly unpatriotic and pathologically nepotistic, and as such must never be voted for or appointed to any office in Nigeria, where utmost patriotism is a compelling requirement. They have an entirely different agenda to violently and systematically weaken and overrun the country for their eventual occupation of its entire territorial space, in collaboration with their foreign allies in Turkey, Iran, France, and the Arab world. That is why they are groaning about the actions of the United States in Nigeria on December 25th, 2025. That is why they are shooting up our country. They don't care about Nigeria and the Nigerian people, including the poor Fulanis who live below poverty line and the Fulani young males they drug, arm, and deploy to positions in forests, villages, and alleys across Nigeria in their unholy mission to violently seize the country. They are bigots, hypocrites, parasites, and are the masterminds of banditry and the organized Fulani terrorism in Nigeria, who must be brought to justice for crimes against humanity and not given the power to continue with their genocide in Nigeria. Note, I did not say that all Fulanis are involved because they are quick to run those type of rhetoric in order to take us away from talking about what is real. Now, before I go further into this discussion, I want you to hear from Aaron Smith in a 17-minute video. Aaron Smith was the British chief labor officer in Nigeria. He came to Nigeria in 1955 and left in 1960. So he was in the know of everything that took place. And he made a confession and described the British people as a disgusting people for that. So, hey, I forgot to welcome our listeners and viewers from Nigeria and around the world. Please permit me, because I am raging, I'm angry about how Nigeria is deteriorating. Thank you for joining us. If you are joining us for the very first time, please do subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button so that when we come with a great news, great exposes like this, you'll be one of those to be contacted. All right. So, to our returning members, we love you. We thank you for helping us get to where we are in this whole journey. And we appreciate your continued support. And those who send us gifts, we thank you very much. Your gift has our gifts have helped us expand our mission, and we'll continue to ask for more gift, more support from, by way of buying our super tanks, by way of buying our super chats, by way of sending us more gifts, and by way of sharing our messages, commenting, because your comments will inspire you too to incite other people to check out our channel to see what we represent. We are a force for good, a global movement for justice, yeah, peace, and security. That is what what we are known for. Please, if you are just joining us for the first time, you have not liked this broadcast, please, we invite you to do so, because that inspires us. That makes us give us the more courage we need to do this work, very dangerous work that we are doing on behalf of the people of Nigeria. All right. Oh, Galaxy. Hey, Galaxy. Hey, how are you? Dennis Jordan, thank you very much. Greg, we appreciate you. Thank you very much for being a part of this. Raj K. Bolake, thank you very much. And please, share this stream so it can get to more people, and so it can go forward. So now I am going to play a video recording of an interview done with Aaron Smith, the then chief colonial officer of Britain in colonial Nigeria. I hope you enjoy it. All right, here it goes. Hello, and Mrs. Carol Smith. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
May I say how delighted we are to be on Passion. We've looked forward to speaking to an African television station for decades. This is something we have looked forward to for such a long time, and we are so happy to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Aaron Smith was a young, bright, and principled Oxford University graduate who was recruited by the Colonial Office and posted to Nigeria. He took his final examination a year ahead of his class. He also married Mrs. Carol Smith, whom he met while they were both at Oxford University. Together they went to Nigeria, where they had their 2 children. Mr. Aaron Smith, you were featured in a program recently by BBC Radio 4, titled Document, and that was hosted by Mr. Mike Thompson. You are alleged that the British government rigged the first and most important election in the history of Nigeria in 1959 in favor of the North. Am I correct?
Here's a simple Christian-centered online business that you haven't heard of before, and it's built to bless your community.
Yeah, I don't know why. All right, we are having a challenge with the network here, but I'm hoping that it comes back so we can get this whole thing continued. Hello, and Mrs. Carol Smith. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
May I say how delighted we are to be on Passion. We've looked forward to speaking to an African television station for decades. This is something we have looked forward to for such a long time, and we are so happy to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Aaron Smith was a young, bright, and principled Oxford University graduate who was recruited by the Colonial Office and posted to Nigeria. He took his final examination a year ahead of his class. He also married Mrs. Carol Smith, whom he met while they were both at Oxford University. Together they went to Nigeria, where they had their 2 children. Mr. Aaron Smith, you were featured in a program recently by BBC Radio 4, titled Document, and that was hosted by Mr. Mike Thompson. You are alleged that the British government rigged the first and most important election in the history of Nigeria in 1959 in favor of the North. Am I correct?
Yes.
How long were you in Nigeria for?
From 1955 to 1960. And we were based in Lagos. I was on the staff of the Department of Labour. I was largely occupied with employment problems, all the employment exchanges, and statistics, and international reports, and was kept pretty busy. I was also stationed in Lagos in charge of the capital and the port. I was the port labour officer as well. And I also devised a port labour scheme and later a social security scheme, which was one of the first in Africa, which guaranteed workers some income after they'd finished work. It was a provident scheme, as I said, it's called the National Provident Scheme, and I was very proud to have put that on the statute book.
I was going to ask you what your role is. You've mentioned three important. Is there any particular name given to your office while you were there?
I was a labour officer, a senior civil servant.
Okay.
I only intended to stay in Lagos initially for 2 tours of duty. Although, because of this conflict with the elections, there were difficulties. Actually, government wouldn't let me leave the civil service. They were determined that I should stay in the civil service after my 2 tours. And I was offered very considerable incentives, including a knighthood, to stay and work for government. Primarily this was because I had access to state secrets. I learned, and the Governor-General himself confirmed this to me, that the elections were rigged, contrived. The intention was that the North should rule Nigeria. Even in '56, the northern leaders were very proud and were saying, if they couldn't run Nigeria, never mind elections. They might not join Nigeria. They might leave. And we all thought, well, how would they survive? There were no industries. There's not a great deal of agriculture, some groundnuts in the north. This wasn't very practical at all. And then it was, the Governor-General seemed to be thinking that the North couldn't, even if it won an election, rule Nigeria by itself. The South wouldn't stand for that. So there had to be a partner, either the Igbos in the east or the Yoruba in the west, to team up with the North. What he didn't want was for the 2 southern parties, the Igbo and the Yoruba, to team up to form the government, because he believed the North wouldn't tolerate that and talked about leaving the federation. So as I learned, in a small way at first, but very rapidly I learned about the election fixing. And as I say, this was confirmed to me by the Governor-General. He actually said that he wanted me to know the truth because he wanted me to know how much trouble I was in.
You mentioned statistics. You were collecting figures. Is that for labor and unemployed people only, or general?
Primarily, but obviously my interest was in the population
of Nigeria.
Yes. And Awolowo, the Yoruba leader of the action group, and Chief Enaharo, they too, other people were saying, where are all these millions of people in the north? Where are they? We're going up there to campaign. We want to know, And you see all these, thousands of miles of not very developed countryside, and yet the northerners are claiming that their voting registration figures are larger than in the south, larger, far more people up there. Well, actually, if you went through the Igbo land, Enugu and that, you saw lots and lots of people. If you went to Ibadan, again, Ibadan teeming, with millions of people.
Where the life
But we
started.
didn't actually see many Northerners, and obviously not many Northerners at that time came to Lagos. So this did arouse suspicion. Now, the Europeans, not stupid, we're watching what's going on in Nigeria, and we too are beginning to feel there's something not quite right here, that maybe the elections are not going to be as straightforward as they're meant to be. Nigeria was being described as the showcase of democracy, and it was expected that the nationalist leaders would win through. But actually, when the election results were announced by the Governor General, before the vote was even in,
The
they did
election
both
result we
pre-planned
announced before
announcement.
the votes
Didn't
came
wait for
in.
that. I have to tell you, the British were counting the votes, and the British cannot be trusted. They look after their friends. Loyalty is the big thing for the British, and we were friends with the emirs of the north. We looked on people like Inaharo and Awolowo as rather dangerous people. They might even be communists. That's ridiculous, actually. They couldn't be communists in 1,000 years. But this was the sort of thing that was being said. And we were, Europeans, were getting a bit worried about all this. It wasn't quite the honest, straightforward election that we were hoping for.
Apart from Professor Anderson and Dr. Patrick Wilmot that supported your submission on the rigged election, there were other people who also served in the colonial office in your days. I mean, who opposed to this submission?
Initially, I was warned of what was going on by my senior officer, a Major Bunker. I didn't know. And I knew that the Governor General had directed me to take all the office staff of the Ministry of Labour to help Chief Okoti Igbo in politicking in Warri. And this was most irregular, and I refused to do this. Having refused an order, I know what the drill is. You resign. I resign my post. That is the proper thing to do. What they did then was rather devious. They persuaded me to withdraw my resignation, and when I did, they sacked me. It didn't go through, but I thought this was a bit low after I'd resigned and was prepared to leave the country. This was not very nice behaviour. They later withdrew this and said that I had been of some service to the state, and actually commended me for what I had done, and said I could leave Nigeria with splendid testimonials, and we shook hands on this. And this was done with the recognition of the Deputy Governor General, Sir Ralph Grey. And then I left Nigeria the first time and took up a job as a personnel officer, a very big job, with the Esso refinery. And then government came after me, declared that I was a traitor and I had betrayed the British people.
This is why I'd become a master of AI tools if I had 10 years left until retirement. Watch this. Your college
ought to be imprisoned. And I lost that job. And then they came to me again and said, it's all been a big mistake. Dreadful mistake. I'm a jolly decent chap, Oxford chap. And they put me on a plane straight back to Nigeria, where I'd make up for the time I'd been away. There was a great deal of good work for me to do. And we fell for this. We shouldn't have gone back, but we did.
Now, if you recall what you said about the role of the Governor General and the attitude of the British government in particular, regarding the fear that Awolowo, Okotebo, and the lot of them from the south are dangerous. Is there a particular reason? Why the fear from the British government? Is it that they don't want to release or relinquish Nigeria? They still want to control Nigeria?
They knew that the North would do as they said after independence. If it had any, the North would just, because it was their habit, they liked the British, whereas the nationalists were an unknown factor. Actually, when they took the flag down and hoisted the Nigerian flag, not one of the major nationalist politicians was there.
You hear that?
They weren't even on the platform. This was incredible. These were the people who had sought independence. The people in the North didn't want independence. They didn't want the British to leave. So this was a farce. And for most Europeans who were very close and watching this, we were disgusted. We thought this really had been manipulated, this election. It was unworthy. It was unworthy of the British people. That you would expect Britain, the most opposed it. And I opposed it then and I've opposed it ever since. And I'm telling you the truth. And I was warned, if I told you this state secret, my life could be forfeit.
Earlier on, you said the British government wanted the North in alliance with either of the southern region, either with the Yorubas or with the Igbos.
But
without which they cannot
they can't do it this
rule the country.
The problem was that Awolowo was a highly principled man.
Okay.
You didn't talk to Awolowo about squalid deals and fixing things. Awolowo was not that kind of person. If you read his books, this man was a world statesman. And his young lieutenant, Chief Enaharo, was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. However, they did do a deal with Zik, Dr. Azikiwe,
okay,
from the East. Dr. Azikiwe, there was this big problem in Nigeria. It's the same big problem in America and in Britain. How do you get funds to fight elections? The candidates in Nigeria had no money, but they did have marketing boards, which were a kind of semi-nationalized industry. And they borrowed money from the marketing boards. But there was a suspicion that Dr. Azikiwe, who has formed his own bank, the African Continental Bank, was actually bankrupt. But he was borrowing very large sums of money from the marketing boards and not necessarily repaying the loans. We knew this. We had a great secret service. All the politicians' phones were tapped. All the politicians' mail was opened. Everything that any major politician did in Nigeria, we knew in hours. We watched. We knew all that was going on.
Are you saying, in essence, that Dr. Azikiwe took money?
He was blackmailed by the British to do our bidding.
Blackmailed.
We told Dr. Azikiwe that he could go to prison if an inquiry was carried out into his bank and his financial circumstances. However, we would not want to be vindictive if Dr. Azikiwe was cooperative in helping forward the plans that we had made in the best interests of Nigeria. Dr. Azikiwe has nothing in common with the northern politicians. He loathed the northern politicians. But Dr. Azikiwe went north, did as he was told, and what he was promised was this. The real power, effective power, would be in the hands of the northern emirs. However,
did you hear that?
It would look great if the president was Dr. Azikiwe and he was given a field marshal's uniform, and an admiral's uniform. He asked, please, could he have a row of medals? But they said, well, no, that was a bit difficult, to get the medals. So when the ambassadors started arriving, he was known.
Azikiwe was blackmailed to make him look like he was a criminal that he was not by the British in order to make him yield to a deal, to give up his struggle, what he fought for, the independence of Nigeria. Yes, blackmailed. He went up north to do as he was told, to force the kind of evil that has been generational on Nigeria. They gave him an admiral to make him feel like he's the president of Nigeria, but without power. The powers resided in the hands of the emirs, yes, the Fulanis in the north. That was how the journey of Nigeria to destruction was concocted. It was a time bomb planted by the Britain or by the British, and now it has been exploding. Nigerians, what do you need to be told? To unite, to end this darkness, so we all can be whole. You see how the origin of the war of the Fulanese on Nigeria, aided by Britain, started. Let's listen some more.
To be asking people from foreign countries, perhaps they had a medal for his uniform. We thought this was terrible, but it was said that this happened. He was very vain. And for a time, he functioned as first the Governor General, and then when Nigeria became a republic, as the president. But he has no power. And when he did try to tell the army, he said, I'm the field marshal, the army has got to do with this. They said, hey, you're just a ceremonial figure. You have no power. The Prime Minister, Balewa, gives us our orders.
You hear that?
So there was a feeling then that there was going to be trouble. And then it was because the Awolowo and the Action Group had become the official opposition. What we British wondered, how could they win?
Nigerians, did you hear? Nigerians, did you hear this? Are you a Nigerian, friend of Nigeria? Did you hear this? This was how Nigeria was damaged right from the beginning. Right from the beginning. This is how Nigeria was made to be dysfunctional by Imperial Britain right from the beginning. Now, what do we need to be informed about the direction we should go? You heard from the beginning. He confirmed in his own words, not ours, because we are an evidence based organization. We don't cook up stories. Now, for those Fulanis who threaten fire and brimstone, I hope you heard this. And if you have conscience, you should join all of us to work for a Nigeria that will work for everybody. I was reading something from a Fulani today on a platform. I'm gonna have to read it. Yes. When I put up the notification about this broadcast, he sent me a message calling me a bigot, calling me all kinds of names. Now, who is the bigot? What we have in Nigeria is an apartheid system, similar to what happened in South Africa. Yes. Why should a minority be tormenting a majority? Yes, a minority, less than 10 million people, elites from a minority group holding our country down for 65 going to 66 years. 10 out of the country's 13 heads of states, were either directly or remotely Fulanis or something to have to do with them. Because in Nigeria, when you are from that part of Nigeria, in the north of Nigeria, you have to act like a Fulani in order to be accepted. How they did it, man, I give them a thumb up. How they did it, that you have to claim that you are Fulani or claim ties to them in order to be. Yes, that is something that we should study. But I'm not studying it because I know it. My job now is to inspire the people of Nigeria to wake up and take their country back. Now, not tomorrow, back. And if you look at the relationship between the elites, Fulani elites, and elites from the southwest or the Yoruba race, you go back to 1914 to see that this whole thing did not start today. They have always been in cahoots to hold Nigeria down for their benefit, to the debt and to the detriment of the rest of Nigeria. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the beneficiary of that relationship. And all those who have been before him have been beneficiary. But they love to play the second fiddle. Now we want a Nigeria that will work for the whole of us. They join hands to ridicule the Igbos. Yes, actually, the Igbos are the only ethnic group that is everywhere in Nigeria, and to just support their belief in Nigeria, regardless of the agitations for Biafra. They are everywhere to prove their Nigerianness. But Nigerians have been wired mentally to hate these people. They plunged the country into a terrible war that I know was a genocide for a people who did nothing wrong. And if you look at the army going back to 1966, those who took part in the coup, the way the army was at the time was you have to be qualified. You have to meet some standards in order to be recruited into the Nigerian army. It was only natural that those who were more qualified were in the army. The army was not an Igbo army. The name of the army was Nigerian Army. Yes. But when they came, they seized power in 1966. It was not for an Igbo man to become the prime minister or president. It was those young soldiers who looked for somebody that they believed could be a better administrator. They did not hand over power to Nnamdi Azikiwe. There was no intentions in that direction. Their intention, from what we know, what we heard, and what the closest person to Chief Abafami Awolowo wrote, Odia Ofemo, he stated that the intention was to hand over power to Chief Abafemi Awolowo as the Prime Minister of Nigeria. That was the intention. It was not an intention to give power to an Igbo man. But the ever corrupt, ever nepotistic, and ever tribal Nigerian media, with the help of the Fulani elites, twisted it so they could have an excuse to jump on the Igbos using Nigerian armament, yes, to cause that mayhem, the worst to have happened in Africa, after which over 10 million Igbos were massacred, including children. And now with Obafemi Awolowo on their side, in fact, with him formulating the worst economic policy that killed over 1 million young Igbo children. What a country. And now you see why we are here. We speak the truth. We don't care who is angry. We're going to have to speak that truth. That is why we are where we are. And the pendulum keeps swinging. It keeps swinging in a very dangerous direction. Now, listen to this. My statement, my message to Nigerians on Christmas Day. And then we'll continue with this discussion. Just listen and hear what Nigeria has become, why Nigeria is where it is, and the reason why the true patriots of Nigeria must stand up and fight for their country. Not for me, fight for your country. Good afternoon, fellow Nigerians. This is Smart Madu Ajaja, the convener of Open Nigeria and Africa Unite, and the anchor of Nigeria Now at ONN and the Nightingale Radio International, broadcasting live from Houston, Texas, United States of America. How are you all doing? Please take this as my Christmas message, because I'm not going to say Merry Christmas to anybody. There's nothing merry about Nigeria right now. Nigeria should be mourning. I know that those who say they are Christians will find a way to make it look nice, that is still okay for them to celebrate because they have life. But what about those millions of our compatriots who have lost their lives? Not because they wanted to die, but because of the tragedy of leadership brought upon them by a drug dealer, a certificate forger, and an identity thief, paired with the terrorists. Yes, those are our brothers. Those are our human beings too. They did not deserve to die. And for those who don't know, because Nigeria does not keep records, but strangely, they say they have a Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, and they gave an account of the number of people who have died within the past 1 year of having a drug baron on the saddle of leadership in Nigeria. The total number of people who have died in Nigeria is much more than the number of people who have died as a result of the Israeli and the Palestinian conflict. And the number surpasses also the number of people who have died in the war between Russia and Ukraine. And they tell us that Nigeria is in peace times. Nigeria is at a war. So what I'm trying to say here today is what I have said before. A year ago, or nearly a year and some months ago, that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not my president, and it's not the spirit that drives Open Nigeria rejected him then, still rejects him now, and we reject him until the people of Nigeria wake up and oust him. That is what I'm telling you. The people of Nigeria, you must set your differences that they created. You do not want to be hateful of your fellow brothers and sisters because they are Muslims or because they are Christians. But these hates are manipulated. Yeah, this hate is manipulated by those who benefit from tearing the people of Nigeria apart. So you people, we people of Nigeria, must now, after seeing the light, after losing everything that is happening, that the Muslim ticket will not bring us a type of dividend of democracy that we need. Christian ticket will not give us a headway over America, a headway over Dubai, a headway over Japan. But Nigerian patriotism will bring it about. So this is the reason why I am audaciously telling you, we, the people of Nigeria, to unite like never before, because we have never been united before. And this is the reason we have been suffering for no just cause in a country that is endowed with everything, abundant human and natural and mineral resources. But yet we are the poorest people on earth. We have no reason to be poor. Some of us have no reason to be where we are. Our young people who migrate across the Sahara Desert to get to Libya and then from there into Italy on raft boats are not supposed to be living in droves the way they live and then die en masse the way they die. They die because of the harsh economic conditions at home brought about by these tragic leaders that we have. So what do they do? If you are a Christian today, it's a time for you to reflect that God gave you dominion. So what are you doing with your dominion? Does Adeboye and Oyedepo just say it in the passing and then you say amen and go away? Don't you know that you should practice it? Your dominion, which is your basic human right. What are you doing with them? That criminals have taken over all the spheres of Nigeria, and you are waiting for the Lord to come down and save you. The Lord does not operate like that. Jesus does not operate like that. God will not come down after giving you the tool you need to survive, and then you expect him to come back and do the same thing he has empowered you to do for yourself and by himself. It's not going to happen. So it is going to require you, Nigerians, Christian, Muslims, enemies, and whatever you serve, come together in a rare manner to do justice to the evil that has beclouded your country. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is an agent of destruction. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is an agent of neocolonialism. Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Kashi Shetima, they represent destruction for Nigeria. So we must not go to sleep and allow them destroy Nigeria when we are still conscious. We have lost so many of our compatriots for no just cause. Our people are dying in stampede in a country that has over 80% of arable land that is not cultivated. What is wrong with us? So it is because we have resigned, because we have accepted evil as righteousness. That is why we are suffering. So, oh ye Nigeria, get up. You are not the lazy people that you have become. You must stand up now and fight for your life. You must stand up now and fight for your children. You must stand up now and fight for Nigeria. You must stand up now and fight for your future. That is what God tells you and nothing less. Any person telling you any other thing is a liar. Any person who is organizing, telling you about 2027 is a liar. He does not love the country. Now is the time. Check it out. A man who came from the periphery, when he didn't command any troop, are telling me, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to him, to win him, to defeat him in 2027 when he has his hands on the levers of power? That is impossible, because I can guarantee you that 2027 will come and pass, and Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be there. So he's not going to be removed by an election. He's going to be removed only by a popular vote by the people. I didn't say army. The army is dead. Nigeria has no army. Forget about the army. The army works with the terrorists holding Nigeria hostage. The people of Nigeria, you poor, ordinary, extremely poor people in Nigeria who are suffering, who are dying in stampede. This is a moment for you to take your anger and say, we have had enough. And this is the only thing that can see Bola Ahmed Tinubu out of that place. So if you're organizing for another election, like a lot of people are calling me, they want me to come and collaborate. I said, no, I am not collaborating with you because I do not believe in this. Collaborating with you means validating Ahmed Tinubu. I never validated him, and I'm never going to ever validate him. He's a criminal who was prosecuted here and then made to pay a fine of over nearly 500,000 US dollars. They sent him home, and then he became a senator in Nigeria. From there, he became a governor of Lagos State, and from there, he has expanded his farm to first himself as president of Nigeria. All of you, everybody was watching, and nobody is standing up to do anything. People, traditional rulers, Their scholars are taking turns to validate evil in their country. Oh, Nigeria, what happened to you? No, oh, Nigeria, where are your patriots? Where are your fighters? That is how sad the situation in Nigeria is. Yes, to the extent that recently somebody sent me, yeah, just yesterday, somebody sent me a picture of his son inspecting a guard of honor. They have created the office of first son in Nigeria. Like, what is happening in Nigeria? What is happening? What is happening in Nigeria? That we see all these absurdities and everybody is silent. What is coming to Nigeria, to hit Nigeria, will be too much to comprehend. It is better imagined. Nigerians, wake up and take your country back. This is my Christmas message. Bye for now. And I love you. Yes. 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 Today is the first day of February 2026. The issue of discussion is the raging elitist Fulani war on Nigeria. It is not, it is a war for Fulani economic survival and dominance and has nothing to do with Islam or God. It is purely a war of survival for the Fulani race and their dominance over Nigeria. Nothing, absolutely nothing to do with Islam that they use as a smoke screen or God. And if it is God, I don't believe it is the God Almighty that I believe in, that the world believes in. So, you Nigerians, we Nigerians, we must stand up and fight for our rights. We must stand up and fight for our people. We must stand up and rise with the Hausa people because the Hausa people are the chains that the Fulanis have to hold Nigeria in captivity. And they have used it for 65 years. We must not allow them to continue to use them. The Hausa people are now raging. They are asking a lot of questions. They are asking a lot of questions. They are our brothers and sisters. They want to be free. So we must not close our eyes as if it is not our business. If the Hausas in Nigeria are not free, Nigeria will never be free. And Nigerians will never be free. Did you hear me? If the Hausa people in Nigeria are not free, Nigeria will never be free. And we Nigerians will never be free. So if one finger, as it stands, let's assume Nigeria has one finger, and this finger is ailing, it means that all of us are ailing. It means that all the fingers are ailing. If the Hausa is a major finger in Nigeria, they are looking for a sense of direction. They want to get out of ignorance. They want to be literate. They want to go to school, but they don't have a channel because those with the channels who speak their language, they stole their language like the French people did in their colonies in Africa through their policy of assimilation that made them look like we and French are the same. And then, but they have the microphone. Every time they have the microphone, they advocate or they advocated for the good of France to the extent that those colonies bank, their central banks are in France as opposed to in their various countries. That is why you see them, they are struggling. That is why Burkina Faso said no. That is why Niger said no. That is why Mali is saying no. That is why Senegal is rumbling. Yes. And that is why Ivorians inside the Ivory Coast are moving for change against the agent of France holding their country hostage. That is why the Togolese want to be free. Yes, and so the Hausas must be free. And that is why they are rumbling. We need them, they need us to be part of their suffering and their liberation. The Igbos stood up and we shouted them down. We lined wrongly behind the oppressors to destroy the Igbos. Over 6 million of them perished. The Hausas have been perishing since the past 222 years. It's been millions of Hausas. Yes, as we stand right now, the Hausas are targets. They go to their villages, they massacre them. Yes, they go everywhere, they destroy them. They kill their women, they rape their women, they seize their farms, they enslave, they tax, they impose taxations on their farmers. How long are we going to continue this? It's time. It's time, Nigerians. It's time. Nigeria will never be whole. Nigeria will never be whole until we stand up for Nigeria. Yes, it is not a game. It's not a question of uh, where you come from. It's no longer a question of your religion. It's a question of the truth. Yes. Today, if you are an Hausa activist who is not following me, please start following me right now because I am inspired to inspire you to fight for your rights and to fight for the freedom of the Hausa people in Nigeria without asking you for anything in return. Let us join hands. The people who formulate Sharia, yes, they set standards that they do not live by. They set standards that they do not live by. They use Sharia as a weapon against the poor in the north, especially targeting the Hausa people. They know the Hausa people are going to be the ones who are going to be extremely hungry to the point of doing something to feed. And they grab them, take them to Sharia courts, sentence them to all forms of inhumane and inhuman treatments, including but not limited to chopping off their hands and stoning them to death. But when a criminal like this does anything, nobody hears. He's the righteous, is their God. Yes, that is not fair. That is not should not be happening in a country. Here is Abubakar Malami behind me, right there, crying. As a Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Nigeria, he tormented so many Nigerians. He sentenced people to jail unjustly. Now he's at the spotlight for corruption, massive corruption against Nigeria. He's not being tried using the Sharia law. So why should that young man be tried with Sharia law? If they are serious, if they were not political about their Sharia law, why is Malami not being tried using the Sharia law? Why was Hadi Sirika not tried using the Sharia law? Don't he deserves to be his neck cut off much more than that young boy who stole a cell phone because he was hungry. Yes, see the hypocrisy that the Fulani elites represent in Nigeria. The Nigerian people, look at them. Yes, everything about them is hypocrisy. Everything about them. Here comes this one, Atiku Abubakar. He wants to be president of Nigeria. He has been running to be president of Nigeria. He was vice president of Nigeria for 8 years. Yes, he was involved with all kinds of frauds in Nigeria, against Nigeria. The last one, major one, was his involvement with Congressman Jefferson here in the United States. Yes, Jefferson was sentenced to 13-year jail term. He just completed his sentence. But what happened in Nigeria? Nigeria has been awarding this man one presidential ticket or the other since then. He has run in 5 elections since then. Shame on Nigeria. Shame on the Nigerian system. And this is the reason why we must dismantle that system. Yes. Yes. We must dismantle that system for Nigeria to be okay. If we don't dismantle that system that bring criminals upon our country, yes, we will not be any country. Yes, we will never go forward. So they are at a war with Nigeria. They are the reason Nigeria is in turmoil right now. They are the reason terrorists have taken over the entire northeast and reduced the people there to beggars. That aid agencies now support a whole state in Nigeria. The northeast in Nigeria, a whole geopolitical region is on fire. The entire northwest of Nigeria is on fire. Yes, over gold discovered in Zamfara state. Yes, they bring Chinese companies. These people are criminals. They bring Chinese companies to be mining our gold. Yes, they mine our gold. They arm militia groups. Yes, these same people who own oil blocks in the Niger Delta. I cannot own a gold block in Zamfara. Yeah, what they say, whatever is found in the north belongs to the Fulanis. But whatever is found in the Niger and other parts of Nigeria belong to Nigeria. That was why the NMPC was formed in 1977 to manage and administer the oil resources. But there have been solid minerals discovered elsewhere in Nigeria that the Nigerian government does not even have any access to. We are tired. And it boils down on the type of leadership and representations that we send to Abuja from other parts of Nigeria. Look at this one, a criminal like this. Yes, he was arrested for 1.3 trillion naira fraud. Yes, under him for 8 years. Today, he's running for Senate. So you imagine him meeting those rogues who are Fulanis that populate the half of the National Assembly, more than half of the National Assembly. Does he have the guts to stand up to them? No, he will not. He will go there to share money, put in his pocket, and then come and be oppressor to his people in his region. We need intellectual thugs now. We need people who can fight for the people of Nigeria from all over Nigeria to be the face of Nigeria. I wish we had this man here. I wish we still have Nzogo, a revolutionary, a visionary who saw what is happening today. There a long time ago, he stood up to fight for his country and they demonized him. Yes, they call him Igbo coup plotter. But today, I hope you'll be smiling in his grave over the state of Nigeria. Now, with this, the visibility for 2027 is hazy because instead of an election, Nigeria will most likely experience a far-reaching, very violent, a far-reaching, very violent people's revolution that would consume nearly all the high-profile members of the current political class and notable religious leaders, traditional rulers, and the drivers of the private sector of the country's economy for their direct, indirect, and remote contributions to the destruction of the country. Yes, because of a widespread discontent and accumulated anger towards them from around the country. Yes, this is is modern. I don't know what else, how else Nigerians will react. Yes, to save their country. It is so compelling, and it is now, not tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Yes, this is my message to the Hausa people. I want to remind you that your suffering, misery, poverty, subjugation, abuse, and denial of access to opportunity was not created by Allah. It was created by generations of Fulani bigots, hypocrites, robbers, and killers who do not want you, yes, you, the majority, to amount to anything in Nigeria. So the only way you can free yourself is to dissociate yourself from them. You don't have to be under their subjugation. Islam does not promote discrimination, hate, massacre, and genocide. Wake up, Hausa. Yes, this is my message to the Hausa people. I want to remind you that your suffering, misery, poverty, subjugation, abuse, and denial of access to opportunity was not created by Allah. It was created by generations of Fulani bigots, hypocrites, robbers, and killers who do not want you, yes, you, the majority, to amount to anything in Nigeria. So the only way you can free yourself is to dissociate yourself from them. You don't have to be under their subjugation. Islam does not promote discrimination, hate, massacre, and genocide. Wake up, Hausa. Yes, yes, this is the story. This is what is taking place. So when you hear about what is taking place in Nigeria, no region now is spared. These bigots and their militias are everywhere. And we don't have a government that is capable of fighting for the people of Nigeria. And we thank the United States, yes, for their intervention. The other in December, I think Nigerians are asking for more because they don't have anybody, nobody, no government is fighting for them. If the United States, as it is, you know, finds it in their hearts for their love of the people of Nigeria to stand up for Nigeria as the beacon of hope. Nigerians across religious divide. I'm telling you, there are Muslims who want America's intervention. And it's only America that can do it. No other country on earth can intervene the way America intervenes in troubles around the world. Yes, no other country can do it. I've looked everywhere. China cannot do it. China cannot do it. They are a trouble on their own. They are driven purely by economics. They don't care about you. They don't care about anything. Yes, we have had problems in the past. Chinese are part of the problems Nigeria is having right now, especially in the north. Chinese companies are part of those funding the terrorists in the north, all for the gold that they are digging up in Zamfara. And these Fulani elites work with these crazy Chinese to destroy our country. They have no respect for the environment. They don't respect the people. They don't respect anything. All they want is that gold. Yes. So that is why Nigeria cannot fight. Nigeria military is not a military anymore. It doesn't have the capacity to wage a war. The terrorists are more well armed, yes, sophisticated arms. What is driving them is stronger than what is driving the Nigerian military. The shameless rogue president of Nigeria was in Turkey. Maybe perhaps he's still out. Somebody just sent me a message that he has been out in the past 27 days. Doing what? What is he doing outside? He spends most of his time in France. The people of Nigeria are not asking questions. What this whole deal with France is. Nigerians, you are here. Your country has been auctioned. It is the only thing you can do is to rise up everywhere you are in that country with everything that you can muster to fight for your country. Because if we don't, that country will be taken over. With this, we come to the end of this show. I'm sure you now know from history and with everything, with all the evidence we tendered, yes, before you, who the troubles of Nigeria are, and what we must do to free Nigeria. We must wake up as Nigerians with rights. We must stand up with fellow Nigerians in pains. We must stand up with the Igbos in the southeast of Nigeria. We must stand up with the Hausas who have been victims of Fulani manipulation since the past 222 years. We must unite the whole of Nigeria for action. This is not about Islam. This is not about Christianity. This is about Nigeria. This is about the Nigerian people. This is about the future of Nigeria. This is about the next generation of Nigerians. What type of country are we going to bequeath to them? By staying aloof or by looking elsewhere, looking away while the country is being destroyed wantonly by a group of idiots who do not care about Nigeria but themselves and their families. What else are we going to tell you? So, if you, again, I'm calling for those who just joined us for the very first time today, we welcome you very, very warmly and thank you for being here. And if you have not liked, our production and if you love what we just did, please give us a thumbs up, give us a like. That will help us, stay inspired and continue to do the work that will bring the truth to the people of Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the world. And if you subscribe to our channel, and just not only subscribe, click the notification button so that whenever we come up with these great messages, you'll be a part of the conversation. And to those who put their voice behind what we are doing, we love you and thank you for your contributions and look forward to seeing you in our next edition. Bye for now and with much love.